About it now, an arrest in Chestnut Hill Township up in the Poconos, obviously in Pennsylvania, in the gruesome quadruple murders at the University of Idaho, what, 6 weeks ago?
So the suspect is 28 years old, Bryan Kohberger, taken into custody early Friday morning by the FBI and police up there in Monroe County based on an arrest warrant. Now, we've heard that he has waived extradition, so we want to get some of the new information we've learned over the weekend, which has been a lot. Retired FBI agent and director of Criminal Justice Institute at Wilmington University, Scott Duffey, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me again.
What was the break in this case?
So the police are putting out very little, right? And according to state law, they're not allowed to put out. But talking to family, talking to friends, and it looks like that some sort of forensic puts the individual at the scene, enough for them to be able to put an arrest warrant together, an affidavit, and charge Bryan with the quadruple
Because this guy was living and going to school about 8 miles away in the state of Washington, which is the bordering state of Idaho, obviously, at Washington State University.
Yes.
So he was a student, but he's 28 years old, right?
Yes, 28 years old.
So they think that maybe that there was some DNA connections, and we've seen this again. We just saw this with the boy in the box case, that some of the other family members have done some of those, you know, you find your ancestry,
right,
and that DNA goes into that, and they may have connected that with like a vehicle or something to put some of the pieces together to track this guy.
So the police put out that they were looking for a white Elantra, right? Mm-hmm. And it's possible that they had, going through all the different Ring cameras or whatever surveillance camera that exists, it's possible they had a partial tag, but all they were putting out was, we're looking for information on a white Elantra. Obviously, somebody called in the many, I think it was in excess of 20,000 tips. And so they go through those
tips. From all across the country,
From all over the country.
Yeah. Because his dad flew out there from the Poconos to Washington State University, which is in Pullman, Washington, and they drove that white car all the way back to the Poconos?
Correct. That's what we know, right? And once his arrest had taken place and it was publicized that there is the white Elantra that they had been looking for parked at the residence of the parents.
And they had been tracking it for some time, so they were following the journey. They're now asking for any tips along the route if anyone saw anything. But they sat on that for a little bit on that house to make sure to just survey it and everything to make sure they could take him into custody really without incident.
It seems to be, and having worked fugitive cases, if in such a high-profile case as this, if the FBI is involved, in which this case it was, the FBI is definitely surveilling, providing every imaginable resources to the police.
It seems like the FBI and the local authorities did a darn good job of keeping a lid on this thing.
Yes, they have.
Because that helps with the investigation.
Yes.
And they won't unseal it. So he was waiving extradition. So what does that mean? What do we think the timeline is that? Could he be leaving today, Pennsylvania, to get on a plane?
Probably not today. So the courts are closed. And through an attorney, he had an attorney appointed to him in Pennsylvania for the extradition. And with regards to that and the talks his attorney has been providing between him and the suspect is, hey, are you going to waive extradition? He has a right to stay in Pennsylvania and fight the charges and force Idaho to present some of the facts in Pennsylvania.
You know, it's funny, his family's sticking by him, even released a statement saying,
sure,
you know, we're going to stand by our son, and we're going to stand by our brothers, some siblings. So I don't know. We'll keep an eye on it, see how it changes.
It's interesting. We're learning a lot more now from friends, family, college students. He went to sales. You know, he had studied. He's a smart person academically, but that he was very socially awkward, may have had a lot of problems with relationships with women. We even have, there's a brewery up there in the Bethlehem area where they had a note for when he walked in, according to multiple reports, basically like this guy makes kind of inappropriate and creepy comments to women and gets very offended when, like, you know, they reject him or not like reciprocating those advances.
Sure. And in any of these type of cases, and such a horrific murder, when you identify a suspect and you go through the suspect just like you would in a victimology, in studying the history of the victim, you study the history of the suspect once identified. Here, Idaho has identified a suspect.
Yeah.
And
it was such a brutal killing, though.
Brutal.
You know, like violent and angry.
And that is why law enforcement put out early on that this was a targeted case as opposed to a random serial killer or some other
Yeah.
random act, that this, because of the type of brutality with a knife,
You won't be shocked that he knew them.
I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if he had absolutely no connection.
We don't know in this case, but we've seen a number of other cases. Does it seem like it's what they call like an involuntarily celibate, where we've seen that these men act out extremely violently? There was a case up there in Canada where there's somebody that went on a horrible spree with their anger at women, at these beautiful young girls and women, that there's other men that can have a normal relationship and they're so frustrated. Did it look to you like that if you're profiling the suspect?
So, yes, you look at the pattern, right? And you go through all those that have been identified in the prior incidents, and there's that social awkwardness, there's that inability to hold down a relationship, and law enforcement, FBI is going to do the exact same thing here.
Boy, it's important that we do have surveillance cameras all over the country. That was probably a big break in the case, too, having surveillance cameras of that white car.
And I think there will be many more images coming out of what they have seen as soon as the affidavit is revealed.
Scott, thank you.
Thanks.